You were one of our first conversations when we started this little podcast
was?
over a year ago. And
Yeah.
I think you were season two, because I was going back and looking at some of the episodes. So one of the OGs.
All right, nice.
Especially even in the grand scheme of things, because I think in that conversation you talk about like we weathered FTX, like we've been through it all. Like stablecoins have always been the goal, and this is where we're at now. So, what moment are you guys in this year? I mean, especially I love the unleash the stables, the whole initiative there. You guys have been doing an awesome work.
To be honest with you, I would probably say it's the first right place, right time moment we've been in since we started the company. We built a bunch of things we're super proud of. In hindsight, they were prescient, but in hindsight, a bunch of them were too soon relative to the market cycle and the stablecoin trend. And somehow, in some kind of weird way, all of that experience is relevant. We built the infra layer, we built sort of native on chain, we built to the app layer. We'd had some success at those layers that was kind of like seasonal. But what it's meant was sort of we're building toward the stablecoin use case, and we've done it now full stack. And that experience is kind of directly informs the way we build our infra today and the way we enable stablecoins to move, because we've been trying to make stablecoins move that way through various seasons of crypto history. And so that's how I describe where we are. The other thing I would say is we probably move stablecoins on chain better than anybody else. And that's like simply put what Eco does, and there's fancy tech that makes that possible, and there's an interface that makes that kind of usable. But at the end of the day, we move stablecoins seamlessly across chain and across DeFi as well, or better than anyone else in the market right now.
That's a bold claim. I love that claim, by the way.
I know you love your hot takes. Like Drew will get done with the interview, be like, man, I had some spicy takes this one. I'm excited.
So I mean, that's awesome. What gives you, you kind of mentioned, like, you've gone through these different seasons, you've built these different parts of the business that maybe you're repurposing or using. Like, how are you now in the position to make that claim? What have you built that allows you to back that up?
I think that claim is earned. If we're Lindy at this point in time, but there's some performance benchmarks that back that up. We looked at the market, maybe 18 months ago, kind of saw this fragmentation mess emerging, and then not only that, but use cases that are not yet ripe but are inevitable, institutional money movement use cases that require higher degrees of policy automation, agentic use cases, whatever the hell that ends up looking like. When it hits, it's going to hit like an asteroid in terms of velocity of money and volume of money. So the fragmentation problem is going to compound at sort of increasing velocity. And we looked at the market and we were like, there's no infra that tolerates that state of the market. A stable swap needs to look like high frequency trading in the year 2026, not like a manual bridge that might hit in 2 minutes in the year 2024.
The 10 minutes sitting there, like, did I put in the address wrong?
Yeah.
Is it going to show up? Oh, is there liquidity for USDC on this chain that
100%.
I didn't even think about?
100%. So what it needs to boil down to, kind of to capture our corner of the market, you need benchmarks on the order of, I can move $10 million with 99.9% reliability in less than 10 seconds. Can anybody else do that today? Not that I know of. And that is the sort of scale, the speed, the velocity that's going to be necessary to kind of anticipate where the market is heading. And also, when we think about moving money well, there's kind of three dimensions in that. There's faster and cheaper, which is the infinite game that we've all been playing, especially in the intent space, for at least 2 years, and playing that game pretty aggressively. It's a hyper-competitive game, drives margins down to sort of like the thinnest slice. The third dimension, though, is can you move money smarter? We don't have programmable money yet. I can send a stablecoin. It happens fast, it happens cheap, it happens globally. Those are great value props. But can I really encode relative to real-time market conditions, intra-block, how that transaction needs to think as it goes, how it needs to route, how it needs to settle, etc.? That's an emergent space. And so another kind of part of my bold claim is not only do we move money at scale seamlessly, fast and cheap, but increasingly we just move money smarter, and we give our clients, our customers, our partners endpoints and interfaces to tell us not only that I want to move money, but why and how and when do I want to move money. And we can give them perfect execution against those requirements. And that's a lot of what I think people are underestimating about Eco right now.
Underestimation or misconception, what are some of these like things that people think you're doing that you're really not? Like any like record setting right now that would be helpful for the market? Just like, hey, people might think we're doing this, we're actually doing it this way.
Yeah.
Any things that you just want to, any whack-a-moles you want to have?
Eco is not a stablecoin bridge. Okay, Eco is a transaction network and a liquidity network for stablecoins. Now you can use that to bridge really effectively, and of course, money movement kind of beneath the surface largely like collapses into a bridge or swap moment. But when we sort of were warming the system up and we were scaling it up, we launched a retail interface that was just a super fast stable send and swap bridge. And we did quite a bit of volume through that interface. Honestly, it kind of surprised me. My team convinced me to build that. It wasn't like on the roadmap. And so we kind of like started with this retail interface that was doing pretty decent volume. And some people started to realize Eco is back. But all of that was to serve all of this kind of like back end B2B institutional scale tech that we were actually trying to build and trying to scale. And so the one misconception I think is really important to think about is that, you know, Eco is more than a bridge. We do bridging in the background really effectively, but why would you use Eco? Increasingly, you would use Eco as sort of a more institutional, sophisticated money mover that wants to encode logic in how you move stablecoins on chain.
So something we talked about in our first conversation was the journey and kind of grueling chapter you went through earlier in the company's life with all of the debanking and all of the stuff that you went through, like 2020, 2021, and how much of an upward hill you were climbing with regulation and clarity.
Yeah.
What does it feel like now? You know, as you're finding this kind of tailwind moment for Eco, and you're saying, hey, we've built all of this infrastructure that has taken different forms, but we're now really finding who this is most for, paired with what seems like an incredibly momentous regulation backdrop. Like, what does that feel like now? And any thoughts on just the current moment with what's happening with Clarity, or how that feels as a builder right now versus what you were feeling before?
Yeah, a couple answers to that question. So how does it feel right now? I go back to what I said earlier, right place, right time, maybe truly for the first time in the company's history, even though we've had a couple hits in the past. So that feels great. Like, it feels like early product market fit again, market pulling it out of us instead of us kind of like
Exciting.
shoving it into the market. It's really exciting. We know what it feels like because the app kind of had it for a while, circa 2021, before it kind of hit a ceiling. So we have that feeling again. There's an interesting answer to that question. My second answer is kind of like a little bit ironic. So stablecoins took forever to happen, right? We started Eco in 2018. We're like, stablecoins are going to hit in like 2019, you know, and they took forever to happen. But once they happened, they're actually happening faster than I anticipated. I'm among the greatest stablecoin optimists, and even the market and the traction in the market that we've seen for the last 12 months is surprising me now in real time. So that's pretty cool. It took forever, and then just, man, shot out of a cannon. So that's super interesting. Obviously, the sort of like increasing regulatory clarity was the huge impetus. That's all this institutional money sidelined. They understand the incentives. They understand the value props. They just need the framework to operate within. And the last part of your question, I think, was kind of about clarity in the current regulatory moment. Is that what you were asking about?
Yeah. Anything like maybe specific to Clarity, or as you think about productization, strategy for the product, maybe things that you're building now or not building now based on, I think a lot of people are like generally optimistic, but I'm more so specific on how does that maybe state in Washington or specifics around Clarity maybe driving how you're thinking about what you can now build, maybe that you couldn't before, or anything specific like that come to mind?
The inertia there and kind of like the lag have led to an interesting dynamic. I was just talking to Io about this actually offline, off screen. There is tons of institutional adoption in the early stages of happening that nobody can talk about because it's all stuck in pilot phase. No one will activate the pilot until there's more certainty either from Clarity or from Genius rulemaking. Remember, we got Genius in Congress, but a bunch of rulemaking is ultimately left to the agencies. And that's starting to happen now as well. And so I know from other founders, and we're experiencing this ourselves, that some of our biggest opportunities and our biggest partnerships are live in phase one. We're benchmarking performance. No one can talk about it yet. So we we perform, we hit the benchmarks, we scale that pilot, we get it to a phase 2. Hopefully we can talk about it. But one of the reasons why you can't talk about it is in pilot phase, it's not like truly live. So, they're testing. But once it goes live, once it goes public, once it goes on chain, you need that regulatory kind of comfort. Now, in the stablecoin space, even if we did not get clarity, we can operate with Genius and the rulemaking on the basis of Genius. So it doesn't truly change that much what we are building. We can kind of operate in either of those, like yes, clarity, no clarity act world. I think okay, but where I think it has held up some rather bullish signals from institutional willingness and institutional adoption that is happening, but is kind of like stuck in that pilot phase before waiting on the answer to like, what does it mean to go into production?
It's like the worst thing you could tell to media content guys, because now we're sitting here and like, okay, what are we going to talk about? Like when do we get to talk about this?
There's tons of I think you'll get a chance to talk about those things. I think those things will come to the forefront in the next 3-4 months because clarity won't happen.
Yeah.
We still have a framework with Genius, at least on stablecoins. If clarity doesn't happen, it really hurts the tokenization market, the RWA market, some of the other securities concerns, I think. It really throws those for a loop. It is not terrible for stablecoins if it doesn't happen because we at least have a fallback reference that's already been passed. So, you just kind of like need to understand, are we straddling different rules between clarity and Genius? Yes or no? Once we understand that, I think that we know what we're working with, and a lot of those will come out.
Yeah.
Well, I want to go back to building with Eco.
Yeah.
Who is on Eco, and maybe how has that evolved in the past 4 years? And then kind of the second part to that is with this trend of tokenization, RWAs, we're seeing that a ton. Where do you think that'll change who's building on Eco and impact that?
Yeah, it will. So really the last year and a half are most relevant, because we started building this new protocol 2 years ago. So 4 years ago is distant history. We're at the app layer. Really the last, 18, 24 months, most relevant. Who builds with Eco today? So, again, what are we? Stablecoin transaction network, stablecoin liquidity network, basically like a highly programmatic, really performant order book for stablecoin liquidity around chains and DeFi, major chains. And so, there's a few interesting stakeholders in that problem statement. One, issuers themselves. They want their stablecoins to move faster, move smarter, be more accessible. We have really good orchestration tech and money movement tech that we can kind of like build into their stack to give them more exposure. Blockchains themselves, who are trying to integrate into their developer kit stablecoin specific.
Yep. Who are trying to compete with maybe
tooling.
The stablecoin native chains that are coming out who want to.
Correct.
Yeah.
And there's going to be 8 or 10 in that scene that I think pretty quickly stratify what I think of the wholesale stablecoin market, where you move at real size. And that's kind of where we operate. Interop protocols, who oftentimes work with chains and with issuers to make sure that stablecoins flow more cleanly.
The layer zeros, the wormholes, the folks like that,
and chain links, etc.
Chain links.
And lastly, some of the DeFi protocols that want to deepen their stablecoin liquidity and just make their protocol more accessible. So within those 4 categories and verticals, we currently work with some people in each one that are pretty meaningful to ensure that their stablecoins move smarter, basically, and that there's really, really good developer tooling, whether it's under Eco's wrapper or their own, for building stablecoin related strategies and applications, mostly on sort of an institutional focus.
Can you talk at all about the crowd liquidity program?
Yeah.
That one's just interesting. I mean, personally, like the Department of Agriculture, very small niche project, but I just love it.
It's like a total if you know thing.
Is it totally if you know? Like
Yeah.
Friday, it's like always great to have it. I don't have it with
Is
me.
it still going on?
It's still. I think we need a season 2.
Definitely.
Season 1's been a while.
Maybe
People
we
had
could
fun with
work
it.
on a season 2 together.
You want to do that?
That could be cool.
I'm actually looking to change the game. If you guys have creative ideas,
we reached out to Rob on your team. We were like, hey, how did you guys do that? Something we're thinking about with the show is like when people are actually tuning in right now, we could kind of do what you're doing on Fridays on the show and say, hey, you just shared a lot about like the interop. We could put on the thing right now and say, hey, what were the 3 interop companies that Drew just mentioned on the stream?
Yeah.
And like put that in the tap the hat or tap the hoodie or whatever it is.
Or even just opening up that 10-minute window, at some random point within the stream, or if you think in real life events,
like
working
proving that you're paying attention, proving that you're engaged, and then we could reward those people with stablecoins.
Yeah. And we've talked about some swag runs in the past as well. All right, so we could do
The
something.
Costco stuff. You guys have been doing some cool.
Yeah, shout out Bobby. Bobby did an amazing job. I think he did a lot of the work.
Propaganda Bobby. So yeah, we've done these like alpha leaks that have been interesting as we've kind of like been building pieces of a new protocol. And yeah, the protocol is like institutional money movement, but there's some retail hooks in it that are kind of fun and interesting. Crowd liquidity is what you're talking about, right? Like, so we're a liquidity network. Our performance is directly correlated with how effectively do we aggregate liquidity and match supply with demand. And you do that just in time in an increasingly dynamic market. So there's a bunch of different liquidity sources you can aggregate, some on-chain, some off-chain, et cetera. For stablecoins, it's an interesting kind of framework because there's a lot of nascent stablecoin liquidity that just sits there. So that's surplus supply, and we try to tap it. So one construct we have, this is sort of like branded, even though we haven't launched it publicly, is this crowd liquidity construct, where sort of vault LPs or just passive stablecoin holders can permit our network to kind of flash bar their stablecoins and solve for cross-chain order flow, aggregate it, solve for cross-chain order flow, and we tested it with Department of Agri and hats. So basically, we tested it by saying, "Hey, here's $100 hat, just a trucker hat." Right, just a farmer.
Clean dad hat, yield-bearing asset, right?
But we're going to take, we're going to sell 200 of these hats. We're going to take that money and we're going to put it into the first crowd liquidity pool, and we're going to use that against our solver to just like kind of solve this system. And then we're going to pay those fees out week over week to those who tap within the narrow window of time that is random on Fridays. Really fun game. It's turned into kind of like a pretty actually high signal community, but it allowed us to dog food that concept, test the tech, and just make it fun.
Yeah.
Now it kind of stuck, so we need a season 2 because season 1 people are paid off their hats. There's a lot of there's
multiple.
People.
I mean, I have candidly and it's every day. It's like,
how much have you earned from the hat generally?
I want to say close to 150.
I was going to say
200.
leading earner should probably be around 160, 170 right now.
Yeah, I mean, so, if you're hitting it every week, and there's been some, it's usually around $5 to $10 a week.
Yeah.
So do
really cool.
Do the math, but I mean, like I said, even just like the concept and. Except hooked us in and said, "Hey, what else can we do with this? Like, we're stablecoin guys. Like this, again, the community aspect of it. Like, if you're in the Telegram channel, I think there's some people have multiple hats. Even it's just so
what's
cool.
funny? A couple people bought 4 or 5 hats, but then their friends couldn't get in because they missed the run, so they resold them the hats.
That's funny.
Now we're talking
at cost.
Yeah. Well, we got to wrap here, Ryne.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun day.
It's always great to talk to you guys. I was thrilled to see you were going to be here. So really, really appreciate you letting me on. Get me on kind of on short notice here, and great to catch up live for
Absolutely.
once. So
tune in for the hook. The hook is the swag run will be
potentially
you heard it here first. I guess we'll say that.
Yeah, just sometime throughout the year, and when we launch it, we'll have you back on the show to talk about it.
Let's jam.
All right, man.
Let's jam. Good
Thanks
to see
for
you,
coming
brother.
on. Cool.